I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's talk about some real collusion, some real election meddling, some spying on the Trump campaign. And of course, we'll kick things off with who else other than Christopher Steele, the MI6 spy, the former MI6 spy, the man who penned and authored the Steele Dossier, that nice work of fiction that has landed us in this 2-3 year Russiagate hoax. There's news coming out now. I believe John Solomon is breaking this story from The Hill. And the story goes like this, that Christopher Steele, was actually saying that the dossier was indeed a political paper and had nothing to do with research or obtaining information on candidate Trump or anything like that. He was actually pressing the State Department to get this document out because he created it for political reasons. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Now, I remember about a year ago, Devin Nunes, at the time when he did the famous memo after he and Trey Gowdy checked through the FISA warrants that had been obtained against Carter Page, which were, to be absolutely clear about this, almost entirely based upon Christopher Steele's dossier. I know that's been denied, but I don't think there's any question about this. He actually said that one of the big untold stories so far was the role of the State Department in this affair. And we've heard a lot about the CIA. We've heard an awful lot more about the FBI. In fact, we know all the people who were involved in the FBI now, I think it's fair to say. We know quite a bit about what was going on in the Justice Department, but the State Department side of the story is only properly starting to come out now. And as you correctly say, it turns out that there was a meeting between Christopher Steele and a very senior official within the State Department. This is Obama's State Department. This is the State Department which Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, had headed, and which was at that time headed by John Kerry. And this particular official met with Christopher Steele, and this is before the 2016 presidential election. And Christopher Steele told her that this is a political document and that he wanted it published before the November 8th, 2016 presidential election. So this absolutely vital piece of information, which apparently even Nunes didn't know about, it's only appeared now. The FBI tried to classify it, which is astonishing, actually, but it's now beginning to dribble out. And I think lots of other things are going to be dribbling out. So we now know that Christopher Steele was in touch with the FBI, that he was for some time a paid informer of the FBI. We also know that after the FBI sacked him as a paid informer because he was talking to the media, he arranged, or there was arranged, a back channel through Bruce Orr, which Christopher Steele used to continue to provide information and his opinions to the FBI. This is even after he'd theoretically been sacked. We also know, I think with reasonable confidence now, that Christopher Steele was in some form in contact with the CIA, because as I have argued many times, the CIA provided to Obama information in August 2016 during the presidential election about high-level intelligence supposedly showing Putin's involvement in arranging for the alleged hacking attacks on the DNC computer. And as I have pointed out repeatedly, that can only have been Steele's dossier that the CIA was providing to Obama in some form. So he was clearly in some way in touch with the CIA. We know he was in touch with Sir Richard Dearlove, who was the former head of the British intelligence service MI6, and it's now clear that he was in touch with the State Department also, and was telling the State Department quite openly that he was engaging in a political hit job that he wanted to see published in order to get to prevent Donald Trump being elected president of the United States.
All right, so the Steele dossier, which was commissioned by Fusion GPS, which was paid for by Hillary Clinton, the DNC's law firms, Perkins Coie, I believe it is.
Yes. Perkins
Coie. So they're on the one side. Meanwhile, you have Hillary Clinton getting all the wheels of government, all the institutions on the other side of the equation, colluding with her in order to propagate this dossier. And Christopher Steele is also sitting there, going to the State Department, speaking with the FBI, speaking with the CIA, greasing the wheels to try to get this document out before the elections.
Yes.
This is about as sinister as you can get.
Absolutely. I should make it clear. I don't know that he spoke directly to all of these people. There's some suggestions.
Well, the Solomon article, I believe the Solomon articles does say that he was speaking with the State Department.
With the State Department, no question. Yeah. He was speaking directly to the State Department. There's no question he was speaking directly to the Justice Department. There's no question that he had spoke for a long time directly to the FBI. And there's no question he was speaking to the media also. With the CIA, it may be a little more complicated. There is some suggestion that he provided his dossier to British intelligence, and it was British intelligence which then arranged for the dossier to be forwarded to the CIA, who then digested it, repackaged it, and in August 2016 gave it to Obama.
Well, it was also given to John McCain as well.
And to John McCain also, of course. I forgot to mention him. But the fact of the matter is, Christopher Steele is the name that constantly comes up. He was right at the center of the web. And you are absolutely right. Hillary Clinton was clearly, or at least people working on her behalf, were clearly getting all the machinery of the US government whirring away, taking this wretched dossier, which I'm very glad what you described about a fake dossier, because that's what it was. The moment I saw it, I said it was fake. This fake dossier, they were getting all the various parts of the US government to take it seriously. And what I think is becoming really disturbing is that it's now emerging that the State Department, Hillary Clinton's own former department, where she had lots of her people planted, were instrumental in leaning on the various security and intelligence agencies of the United States to get them to take this thing seriously and to start this very elaborate operation against the Donald Trump campaign, which was intended to prevent Donald Trump being elected president of the United States and to get Hillary Clinton elected instead. And we've mentioned one meeting that happened between a senior State Department official and Christopher Steele. But I have now read reports that a very prominent official within the State Department, who was heavily lobbying for Christopher Steele's dossier to be taken seriously and for the FBI to meet with Steele, was Victoria Nuland, who was the Assistant Secretary of State of the United States for European Affairs, the key player, one of the key players in arranging the Maidan coup in Ukraine in February 2014. So as you said, it can't get more serious than that.
Yeah, I was just about to go along that path as well, along those lines as well, because now you throw in the name Ukraine into the mix. We know that it was John Kerry's State Department he took over after Hillary Clinton. And I know that John Kerry's, I believe his son was working with a college friend named Devin Archer, who was working with Hunter Biden. And all of these people were involved in Burisma, which was the company, the oil and gas company, the energy company in Ukraine that was funneling money from Ukraine back to the Bidens. And now you include the name Joe Biden as well. And we know that Joe Biden was heavily involved in the Maidan coup. He was involved in getting a prosecutor sacked who was investigating Burisma and investigating the activities of Hunter Biden. And so you have all the dots here are now connected, and they're leading to Steele. They're leading to Ukraine. Victoria Nuland, people may recognize that name. She's married to Kagan, who's, I would say, about as high as you can get on the neocon ladder. I mean, the neocon religion, this guy is a bishop. This guy's a high priest of the neocon ideology, Kagan. His whole family is part of the PNAC. They've written the document about, the neocons, ideology. And so you have Victoria Nuland.
Yeah.
She was the one that was recording saying F the EU, that famous recording, as well as the Maidan coup was going on. Yatsenyuk, he's our guy. They had everything set up. I mean, this whole thing is quite astonishing what's happening here.
Absolutely. And of course, now Joe Biden is the favorite to be the Democrats' candidate in 2020 as president of the United States. So what goes round comes round. I mean, it's clear. To me, it's becoming increasingly clear that all of these dots, as you say, they haven't quite joined up because this hasn't been fully investigated yet, but they are
joining up. The coincidences are too.
They're not coincidences.
Yeah,
we mustn't talk about them as coincidences. There's clearly been a great deal of involvement with Ukraine. We know the Ukrainians were involved in some of the activities in the 2016 election.
We haven't even mentioned Manafort, Podesta.
Exactly. I mean, there was lots going on in 2016, and the Ukrainians were right in the middle of it. And it turns out that prominent Democrats were right in the middle of it also. I mean, you mentioned Joe Biden, you mentioned members of his family, we mentioned Hunter Biden, we mentioned John Kerry and members of his family. The Podestas were there also. There's this constant movement of money backwards and forwards between Ukraine and the United States.
Alexandra Chalupa, who was a DNC consultant, who was lobbying Ukraine to get the document, the Steele dossier out as well. I mean,
absolutely. All of this was going on, and it was going on a simply humongous scale. And it's surely not a chance that it now turns out that, as I said, the State Department, which must have been at the core of all of this, it was the State Department that was central in orchestrating events in Ukraine, along with the CIA. So it was the State Department and the CIA which were leaning on the Justice Department and the FBI to actually begin all these investigations and to take Christopher Steele seriously. Now, I don't think we're talking a conspiracy theory here. We're certainly looking at something that, at the very least, repays investigation. These are not conspiracy theories. They are conspiracy facts.
Yeah, and now Ukraine does want to speak with Trump about what's going on. Trump should take Ukraine up on that offer. Because Ukraine, I know the Poroshenko government lobbied heavily to get Hillary Clinton into the White House. I mean, they made no secret of the fact that they did not want Trump, and they were all in for Hillary Clinton. That's for damn sure. That was the Poroshenko government. Now you have a new president in Ukraine. You have the many officials in Ukraine now are saying, Trump, we want to, turn in the Bidens and the Hunter Bidens and the Burismas and the Devon Archers. We're ready to talk.
Yes. Well, can I just say, you say we have a new president in Ukraine. We have a new president-elect in Ukraine. The date for his inauguration, incredibly, has not yet been set. So we don't actually know when he's taking over. But what we do know is that the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, who was instrumental in preventing Ukrainian investigations of some of these activities, has just been recalled.
Yeah. Yeah,
so, I mean,
and she talked some bad stuff about Trump as well. I mean, she badmouthed Trump, while she was at her post in Ukraine.
Exactly so. So, all of these are straws in the wind. We haven't yet seen where all this is going. We don't yet know whether there will be full and proper investigations. But my impression of William Barr is that he is the kind of person who takes this thing very seriously. He wants to clean up the Justice Department. He wants to clean up the FBI. He is not going to be intimidated or frightened by the Democrats. There's clearly lots of things went wrong in the Justice Department and the FBI. I mean, this has been exhaustively looked into, and we know that for a fact. And now it's beginning to spread, and we start to see aspects of what I don't hesitate to call a scandal are starting to reach into the State Department. There's the whole CIA side of the story, which hasn't yet been looked into. And of course, in the background, there is Ukraine, where all sorts of people were involved. Now, where all these threads will lead, we don't yet know. But we do need someone to start following through with these threads. And if that happens, we will start to get, I think, results. The only thing I've got to say, and I've said this many times, time is short. It's 2019. The next presidential election is in November 2020. The Democrats slowed down the investigations of the FISA warrants and the FBI malpractice until after the congressional elections. And they're going to try and do the same with these investigations until after the presidential elections. It all depends on Donald Trump and William Barr and the Republicans in Congress getting their act together. I think William Barr does have the intention to do that. The problem before was that Jeff Sessions never did. Jeff Sessions is gone. William Barr is there. That's why the Democrats are now gunning for him. That's why they're trying to hold him in contempt.
Yeah, it's all there, Alexander, for Barr to investigate. I mean, all he has to do is take 3 tracks.
Absolutely.
He needs to talk to the prosecutors in Ukraine, the guys that Biden fired. He needs to get them over to the U.S., speak with them, see what was going on there.
Yes.
He can do that real easily. I mean, there was a coup in Kiev, the Maidan, but after the Maidan coup, there was the coup shifted focus towards Trump and the Trump campaign. Barr can investigate that. He can go to London and speak with Julian Assange.
Indeed.
Julian Assange has he can answer a lot of questions, no doubt about it, and I'm sure there's a deal there. There is a deal there to be made. And of course, Christopher Steele. Where's Christopher Steele? Bring him over to the U.S. and talk to the guy. It's so simple.
Exactly. Well, subject him to proper questioning because he hasn't been up to now. I gather, by the way,
he should be on TV, shouldn't he? Just as we saw Barr on TV answering questions, just as we saw Rosenstein, just as we saw all these guys, shouldn't we be able to see this British MI6 spy on TV answering questions?
Well, he's never answered questions in that way. No doubt he will say that he can't because he's involved in a host of legal cases. But you're absolutely right. Apparently, Mueller did speak to him on one occasion, but he needs to be properly examined, and he's never been questioned by Congress. So, I mean, he needs to be properly examined. I think he's got many, many questions to ask. And frankly, the bomb underneath all of this is his dossier. As I said, he's the man at the center of all the web. He's sitting on his dossier. I'm going to be very straightforward about this. I'm far from sure at the moment that all these sources that he claims to have had actually exist. I mean, they may exist, in which case they were presumably lying to him, and one wonders why they were doing that. Maybe they were doing it for money. Maybe they were doing it for some other reason. But, I am skeptical now. I'm becoming very, very skeptical about that dossier. I never believed it from the get-go. I never thought that it was a real piece of serious intelligence about decision-making in Moscow. I mean, the moment I read it, I thought it was nonsense. But as I said, I would like to know a lot more about how it was put together and who were the people behind it.
My fear is that, and we'll close it out on this, and you can comment. My fear is that Barr, though he may investigate all these tracks, my fear is that at the end of the day, even Barr, even Trump, they won't release their findings. They'll find a way to bury all this. Because, I mean, if the truth ever came out, we overthrew the democratically elected government in Ukraine, the CIA and the vice president of the U.S. and the State Department and the Victoria Nulands and the Hunter Bidens, they were taking money from the IMF and they were funneling back to the U.S. And then they redirected resources with the Steele Dossier to, meddle in the Trump campaign and then try to overthrow the Trump presidency. And then you have, the FBI and the DOJ working with Steele. I mean, all of this stuff, it's so overwhelming that at the end of the day, I could see Barr sitting there with Trump and all these guys at the Trump White House, sitting together, the Lindsey Grahams, and just saying, you know what, guys, this stuff literally just undermines the entire Republic of the United States of America, every single institution. There's no way we can release this.
I understand that. The danger of that is that keeping all this secret and letting these people get away with it is going to undermine the Republic of the United States even more. So I think if somebody takes that seriously, then I think they should press for it to be investigated to its conclusion. There is another factor, which is that I think Donald Trump and some Republicans are very, very angry about what has happened. I mean, they are very, very angry about how there has been a concerted attempt to delegitimize a Republican president and to discredit his election victory. So I think there is that impetus too. My major concern is not that there's going to be that sort of cover-up. It's that the Democrats are going to fight this every inch of the way, and there just isn't an awful lot of time now. I mean, to try to get on top of all of this is going to be a Herculean job. It's going to require enormous resources. And whether it will all be over and done with and dusted before the 2020 election, I'm far from sure. And I predict that if these investigations start getting underway before 2020, the Democrats and the media will be howling that this is Donald Trump trying to fix the election by going after the Democrats. And I'm afraid there are some people in the US with whom that story may get some traction. So that, in my opinion, is the major problem now.
I don't know. My gut tells me the closer they get to the truth, something bad's going to happen. The more
the resistance will grow. I mean, it does depend. Ultimately, I have to say this, on the American people. I mean, obviously, there's some people who are so pathologically.
Well, it's split.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are many people in the United States who are so pathologically opposed to Donald Trump, and in a country that is deeply polarized, that they will simply throw out any consideration of law and justice, and unless Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama stand before them and admit publicly to what happened, which I don't expect, they will refuse to believe it. But maybe there are enough other Americans who will be sufficient in number to see this thing through. I remember how back in 1972 and 74, between those years, when there was the Watergate scandal, the thing that in the end brought Richard Nixon down was that his own Republican base turned against him. More and more Republicans said to themselves, we cannot stand with a Republican president when all these things were done. The question, to my mind, is whether anything like that is going to happen with Obama and Clinton and the Democrats this time. I have to say, I don't see it.
Yeah, I can't see it. I mean, Obama to the Democrats is literally, he is the Messiah.
Well,
indeed, he is a religious figure.
Well, indeed,
to the Democrats. There's no way they'll turn
exactly. So given that kind of resistance, is there enough time to see this thing through before 2020?
Well, if Trump wins?
Well, if Trump wins, then there will be. If Trump wins, then there will be. And of course, this could give him a lot more traction. And the economy is strong. And I predict it will remain strong until 2020. So that may be enough to see him through. And then, of course, all hell will break loose. Because at that point, I think he and Barr will want to see it through, and I think Barr will continue to be his Attorney General after 2020. But of course, if Joe Biden wins, or if any other Democrat wins, any Democrat except perhaps Tulsi Gabbard, whom I cannot see winning, then I think this thing will be closed down.
Well, there's a lot of time from now until then.
Well, there is a lot of time, but you know the mills of the law grind very slowly. I mean, it takes a very long time to get this thing going, and unless we start to see progress by the autumn, which isn't that far away, we'll be starting to move into the election year, and then it becomes more difficult. So Trump and Barr need to get their act together pretty fast.
Ukraine, Assange, Steele. To me, those are the three entities that hold the keys.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. We will see. We will see what happens. Okay.
All right, Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on the notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. Visit the Duran shop, pick up a t-shirt, help support the Duran. In the description box down below, you will find links to our PayPal and Patreon pages. Please donate to the Duran. That really helps us out a lot. You can get a copy of this video in audio format. Follow us on iTunes and SoundCloud. And don't forget, you can follow us on Instagram, the Duran_com. And download the Blank Chat app to make sure you get notifications every time we push out a new video as well. And don't forget, go to theduran.com and see our new website. See the links that we are linking up to every day. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you once again. Until next time, everybody. Take care.